Welcome to the fourth episode of First Past Post podcast. I'm delighted to say I'm with my mate Liam. Liam, how are you doing, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, all good. I'm delighted to say that we're going to be joined by Jockey, Gemma Tutty. She's just going to be coming into the meeting now. Just waiting for her to come in. Hi, Gemma. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How's everyone else?
Yeah, not
I'm
bad.
good, thank you.
Just like to say thank you for joining us this evening on our podcast. We appreciate it, and look forward to getting to know a bit more about you and your career.
Oh, thank you. That's my pleasure.
Yeah, we saw on your socials that you just completed the London Marathon as well. So we'd just like to say congratulations on that. And how did that go for you?
Not well. I've done a marathon before and an ultra marathon. I maybe got a little bit complacent when it came to London, set off a bit fast and fell in a heap. So it was hard work.
You couldn't get me doing it, that's for sure.
Yeah, I could barely run a kilometre.
So yeah, let's go straight into it then. Give us a bit about your background into racing. Has it been always in the family, and what sort of age did you get into it?
So we always had pointers when I was younger. I was never really that interested in riding them myself, but sort of felt like I had to. And I didn't really enjoy the jumps until I was maybe about 3 seasons in, finally got the hang of it. And just when I started to improve, I got my amateur license. I was riding over hurdles in amateur races for my mum. And then I was quite light and rode a winner on the flat, and a few people sort of suggested going apprentice. So I decided to give it a go.
And obviously, like you mentioned your mum there, you ride just for her, don't you, at the moment? And what's that like compared to sort of other jockeys who tend to ride for quite a few different trainers? I suppose it's sort of quite a close-knit sort of family run sort of stable.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when I was apprentice, I used to have an agent and ride for whoever I could, but I did a degree full time, so I was really lucky that I was able to still ride for mum. But yeah, I just wasn't really getting on with agents. I didn't really agree with them taking a fee when I was riding for my mum, which I know is how it normally works with an agent. They do take a fee when you ride for your boss. But the amount of rides that I was getting for other people, financially, it wasn't really worth it when they were taking a cut out of me riding for mum. So that was sort of why I decided to just stay riding for mum. And don't get me wrong, if someone asked me to ride for them, absolutely delighted. And I do have the odd spin for people here and there, but without having an agent, there's not that many opportunities to ride for other people. But that was just what worked for me, and I'm happy doing what I'm doing. It's great riding for mum. We don't really have instructions or anything like that. I can just do whatever I see best. We don't really have disagreements over anything because she really respects my opinion and I respect hers. So yeah, it works really well, and it's enjoyable. It's nice going racing without feeling the pressure and sort of worrying about what the trainer might say when you come back in.
Also, I see that you're actually assistant trainer for your mum. Is that something that when you finish as like being a jockey that you'd like to move into more full time?
Yeah, definitely. I have actually done my trainers modules last year. Just haven't quite made a decision about when to move into that side of things, but I'm doing a lot more sales work, trying to broaden my horizons and learn as much as I can. But yeah, I've had a lot more central role with the training of the horses this last year or so, and we've had a really good year this year, so that's been a good confidence boost as well. I felt like I learned a few things on my trainers modules as well, and sort of implemented a few changes in the yard, but it's not something that I want to rush into either, because I think you can never learn too much, can you? And I'm only young still. Definitely. So I'm not in a massive rush, but it's definitely on the horizon and something that I am thinking about.
Yeah, and yeah, I love that. And sort of while you've been riding for your mum, what sort have you had any horses that have stood out for you? Like, you know, has there been certain horses that have won for you on numerous occasions, or, you know, what sort of, like, you know, your most fondest memory so far of riding for your mum?
So, I don't know how many years ago. I first rode a horse called Talent Scout when he was with Tim Walford, and I won on him as a £7 claimer, and they wanted me to buy him and send him to my mum's, and I wasn't even that keen really, but I felt like they half forced me into it. So we bought him for 5,000, and he went to my mum's, and then ended up winning a further 9 races on him when he was at my mum's, including 4 times in his 11-year-old season. And I mean, that was amazing. Like, the feeling when you win on a horse that many times, and he sort of got to the age that he did and still winning for me, it was absolutely amazing. Some of my best memories definitely on him. And then this year I won on a 2-year-old filly that I bought as a yearling and broke her in, did everything with her. She had 3 runs, and then I couldn't ride her on her first 3 starts because I was at different meetings and whatnot. So it was my first ride on her, and she won at Redcar the other week, and then ended up having a double that day. So that was absolutely brilliant, because to see her straight, like, all the way through from breaking her in and then getting to ride her on the track, it was some buzz.
Just touching on that, but sort of a different question. What would you say is the best experience that being a jockey has allowed you to fulfill, like, within horse racing?
Well, it kind of feels like the opportunities are endless in racing. Like, I've worked out in Dubai for a winter for Saeed bin Saror.
Oh, really?
That was an amazing experience, and you know, if I wasn't in racing, I would never have got the chance to do that. And the international apprentice races, I went to San Francisco, Rome, and Morocco, riding in Arabian races representing the country. So that was pretty unreal, and it was all big party in Abu Dhabi as well when you're riding them races. So I got 3 trips to Abu Dhabi too. Yeah, so that was absolutely unreal.
You touched on that there, working with Saeed bin Saror. I mean, what was that like? Obviously, getting the opportunity to just, you know, be in the sort of same surroundings as his horses as well. And was there any horses that you got on? Because obviously he's got a bit of a reputation for having top horses.
I was riding Thunder Snow's half sister, who'd won I think the 2,000 guineas the year before, but unfortunately she actually got injured and never ended up running. But it was really exciting to be riding her for the first part of me being there. But the horse that stuck out for me, of course, other than Thunder Snow, who was there, was Ben Battle. And I don't think he actually ran, but he was there, and I really, really liked him. And then to see him sort of come out this year and do what he does, I really enjoy watching him, and it was a pleasure to meet him, really.
Yeah, he's a top horse.
Yeah, really like him.
One of my favourites.
And obviously there as well, you talked about, you went over to Morocco and places like that. I mean, I weren't even aware that they've sort of got, you know, racing out there and you can ride for the country. I mean, tell us a bit more about that experience as well.
So it's the Sheikh Mansour apprentice series, and there's also a ladies series that the amateur jockeys ride in. It's been, I think I rode in the first year they allowed apprentices in. It's maybe been going 5-6 years for apprentices. Came to a bit of a standstill because of COVID, so I'm not sure if it's back up and running this year or not. But yeah, there's races all over the world, and if you won your race, then you got to ride in the final in Abu Dhabi in November. But unfortunately I had 2 seconds, so I never actually got to ride in the final. But yeah, it was there's like a great British and an Irish representative, and you generally travel with the Irish representative. Sometimes they'd be like riding in England, and yeah, like made friends for life on them trips, and yeah, really good fun.
Just touching on COVID quickly, how exactly did like COVID impact your training and your mum's stable and stuff? I know a lot of operations sort of shut down and there wasn't much racing at the time. Like, was it hard to deal with, or was it pretty much the same?
So everyone had to make a decision whether to carry on training their horses and hope that racing would return quickly, or throw them out in the field or just keep them ticking over. So we put ours on the horse walker every day. We didn't ride them for 6 weeks. The staff weren't coming into work, so it was just the family working every day. So it was pretty tough working with the full family that wouldn't normally be there. Like my sister wouldn't be at home normally. Quite a few differences in opinions. But yeah, it was tough. My friends were actually like, my non-racing friends were complaining about how bored they were all the time, which I found really frustrating because I was so busy. Would have given anything to swap with them for a week. But when the horses came back in, it was amazing how much they'd held their fitness. That was really interesting how fit they were after 6 weeks on the walker. They hadn't lost much at all, and they came back. They were flying when we first came back after lockdown, but it was really difficult trying to decide what was the best thing to do. No one had a crystal ball, so no one knew exactly what was the right thing, but in hindsight I think we did do the right thing. But yeah, it was tough mentally for everyone, but being at home all the time and working at home was quite difficult. But me, my sister and my mum rallied around and did all the fitness and all running and Joe Wicks and everything, so we were all bouncing fit. But yeah, it was glad it's behind us, but yeah, it was
thankfully.
Nicest, was it?
And just like moving on to sort of you touched on obviously your friends there outside of racing and even inside racing as well maybe, but I'm interested to know, like, on a race day, what who are the jockeys who sort of speak to you and give you a bit of advice? Does anyone give you any advice, and who do you sort of speak to the most on a race day?
All the girls get on really well. I wouldn't hesitate in asking any of the female jockeys their opinion or advice or anything like that. But out of the male jockeys, I've obviously been riding on the Northern Circuit for quite a few years now, so I'd like to think that I'm friends with everyone and could speak to any of them in any capacity. If I wanted to ask advice, I wouldn't be worried about who to go to, because you get used to each other and get to know everyone, and I wouldn't feel like I couldn't speak to anyone really.
Would you say there's anyone in particular who's one of your best friends in racing, or you particularly get on well with? Like another
I love
jockey?
all the girls, because we spend so much time together in the changing rooms and whatnot. We have a real good crack, and it's just, we support each other, and it's like any workplace. You talk about, we're not just talking about racing, you talk about anything, in between races. It doesn't have to always be who's riding what and how you've got on. You spend years with these people, but yeah, I'd be quite friendly with Shane Gray, Sam James, Kevin Stott, Rowan Scott, and out of the boys. But yeah, I like everyone. It's all good fun.
Fair enough.
And obviously just touched about COVID there, and obviously challenging times, but regardless of COVID, being a jockey, what sort of what's the big challenges that you've got to face on a sort of, you could say maybe a daily basis, because there's a lot of traveling, I presume, as well.
Weight. Weight's not the easiest. Obviously the COVID allowance has made a really big difference. We've got an extra £3 allowance, and that, I wouldn't be the lightest, so that's made a big difference to me, and I know it will have made a big difference to a lot of people. But also with the sauna's been taken away from us, that's faced different challenges as well, because if you actually do need to lose a few pounds, that option isn't there for you anymore. So if you do need a sweat, you've either got to run around the track in a sweatsuit, or do it in the bath before you go, which leaves you dehydrated for a really long time. I know in an ideal world you won't be sweating at all, but there's always going to be times when you're just not quite light enough. Everyone's weight fluctuates to an extent, so when you're doing your bottom weights, you're going to be very lucky if you wake up the correct weight every single time. But yeah, I think that's weight's probably the hardest thing for me anyway. But yeah, traveling and it's just a very busy life, isn't it? It's hard, and it's not like you can just do what your normal friends do, like go out for a curry and a few beers and all that sort of thing. Like if you're riding the next day, it's not an option, is it? Sometimes you just wish that you had a bit of normality. But then on the days when everything's going well, you don't mind the sacrifices.
I don't think I could do without a curry, to be honest.
And me.
Yeah, it's certainly not an easy lifestyle.
And I mean, what sort of, I know you mentioned that you did a degree. I mean, would you have gone into that field if you weren't actually a jockey?
I actually applied to do a doctorate and I didn't get on. And I do often wonder what would have happened if I had got on, because I did fully plan to go and do that, but you know, everything happens for a reason. And my interest has kind of dwindled in that, so I wonder if maybe that wasn't the right path for me. I certainly, if you'd asked me if I would go down the training route a few years ago, I would have given you a very solid no. But yeah, this is the thing, you're sort of searching for your passion in life. And when I imagine winning the Euro Millions, which I do imagine a lot, I'm picturing myself training horses, but just being able to afford some very nice ones. So I must be in the right profession if it's still what I would do after winning the Euro Millions.
Just touching on another subject, I wanted to ask you if there was any one horse you could ride from the past and one horse from the present you could ride, which horses would they be and why?
I think I'd love to ride Frankel. I absolutely loved watching Frankel run, and he's just an absolute all-time amazing racehorse, isn't he?
Yeah, great horse.
Greatest ever.
And he was in like ridden from lots of different positions, so I feel like, you know, I don't feel like I could have gone wrong, really.
Yeah.
Present. Oh, I think I'd love to ride Ben Battle. I just get so excited when I watch him run, and feel real joy when I see him win. So yeah, I think I'd choose him.
And obviously, you know a lot of jockeys inside out. I mean, is there any sort of young jockeys coming up, like female and male, that you think, you know, people should keep an eye on? You know, who's sort of making their way?
I've been watching. There's Mark Johnson has a couple of good young apprentices. I think there's Johnny Pete. I think he's quite young. Been quite impressed with him. And then he's got Oliver Stammers, who's a little bit older now, but been blighted by injury. So but he seems to get a real tune out of horses. Yeah, I like to keep my eye on apprentices, because obviously, like with the assistant trainer role, I'd have quite a say in jockey booking. So when there is horses in apprentice races, you need to know, you know, who you want on your horses. And in these 10 winner races, you've got to be keeping 10 winner and under races. You've got to be keeping an eye on these more inexperienced jockeys to know like who you want to put up. Because if you've not heard of any of them or seen them ride, then it's a bit of a guessing game, isn't it?
I'm a big fan of Benoit de la Salle. I think he looks a really good jockey.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks up and coming, because he was doing quite well, I think. And again, another example of another youngster who could well make it. And I think, obviously, you know, growing up with racing in the family, who did you actually look at sort of as your sporting hero? And maybe even outside of horse racing, was there any other sport that you've got a keen interest in, and who did you look up in that as well?
So as a kid, I did tetrathlons, I did eventing, show jumping, all to affiliated level. So I was probably more into sort of eventing and show jumping icons as a child. And then racing wise, I started off point to point, and in jump racing I didn't particularly follow flat racing, so my idols were always jump jockeys. Definitely Tony McCoy and the likes of Katie Walsh and Nina Carberry were probably my my idols when I first got into racing. But once I went down the flat route, I can't, you can't fail to be impressed by Ryan Moore. He's just the ultimate cool horseman, and doesn't seem to do a lot wrong.
Yeah, and I think I did a bit of research before we started this, and I saw you touched on sort of female jockeys as well, and how some trainers don't actually use female jockeys. I read an interview a few years ago. I mean, what's your thoughts on that now? And do you think that's obviously developing? And is there more room now for young female jockeys to think, actually, I have got a chance in this sport, and I can actually achieve things if I put my mind to it?
Yeah, I think we've come a very long way since I first got a license. It's completely different. It used to, especially in the northern ranks, there was sort of more girls riding down south, but there was very few up north, and it didn't feel like they were getting the opportunities that the boys were. And I'm talking like inexperienced jockeys, so you couldn't have made a case for the girls weren't as good as the boys, because there'd be girls that had ridden a lot more winners than the boys in these scenarios that I was talking of in that interview, which was quite a few years ago now. But no, it's completely different now. If you ask me that question now, I would have totally different opinion on it. Like, Holly Doyle's just absolutely phenomenal, and she just seems to get better and better, doesn't she?
There's some absolutely outstanding female jockeys, like you said, Holly Doyle, Hayley Turner, even like Bryony Frost and Rachel Blackmore, who've gone on to achieve big things as well. So like you said, I definitely think that the sport has progressed from a few years ago, for sure.
A lot of the female jockeys seem, not Holly, because she obviously got going very young, but a lot of the female jockeys seem to get going at a bit of a later age than the guys do. Rachel Blackmore, I actually met in France. We were over at Guillaume Macair's one summer when I was 17, and she was an amateur then, so I've always sort of loosely followed her career, and she didn't go professional till, I don't know what age she was, but it would have been later 20s, I think. And like Josephine Gordon wasn't anywhere near as young as Holly when she rode a claim out, and I think the boys do seem to get going a bit earlier age-wise. Often, like, there's guys in the weighing room that I've been riding with that long, I just assume are quite a lot older than me, and it turns out they're not.
Sorry, go on, Lee.
No, go on, mate, go on.
I was just wondering, is there any particular race that, as a jockey, like, you would love to ride in, like a race that you've dreamed of riding in from a young age, or I just wondered that.
I think, being from Yorkshire, I'd absolutely love to have a ride in the Ebor, because York is just the ultimate track for me. Been one of my local ones, and a lot of my friends would go for days out there, and it'd just be amazing to ride in a big race like that, so close to home.
Yeah, we're looking to actually get to York Ebor for next year.
Yeah, we said it looked fantastic this year, so
really want to
next year we can
really
get down there.
Go there. And sort of quickly going back to obviously the jockeys, and is there any sort of young female jockey that you think is actually coming through as well?
It's difficult off the top of my head. I do find with some of the female jockeys coming through, I just notice that horses just seem to really run for some of them. But there was Georgia Doby a few years ago. We used her in an apprentice race for jockeys that hadn't ridden a winner. So I've really enjoyed watching her career flourish, from sort of giving us some rides in the really early part of her career. It's just been nice to watch her. I do think she's very accomplished in the saddle. But yeah, there's Laura Pearson's had an amazing season. Like a Royal Ascot winner that early on in her career is just absolutely insane. I can't even imagine how good that would have felt. But yeah, I think there is plenty to watch out for, but I find sometimes they come to fruition on the all-weather. So if you keep an eye over the winter, there might be another one pop up like she did last winter.
And obviously, just touching on your career now, I mean, what are your aspirations now, sort of going forward for the remaining year and starting off from 2022 as well? Is there anything you've got in mind, sort of, you know, with any certain horses that are currently in the stable, or, you know, anything else like that?
I set a goal for this season for the yard. I wanted us to have 15 winners, and we're currently on 14. So whether I'm on it or not, I want us to have another winner. That would be brilliant. And really, it's just about achieving the best we can out of every horse that we get. You know, it's difficult to set targets in racing because you're working with animals, and you can't always guarantee that they're going to stay injury free and everything else. But yeah, as long as we can do the best with the horses that we have, then I'm happy, really. There's been a few that I feel like we've done a really good job with this year, and it's really satisfying to see them sort of achieve what you want them to achieve and more, really.
Yeah, go on.
I was just wondering, what would be your advice to a youngster looking to get into racing or training or being a jockey? What would your advice be to them?
Well, I started on the pony racing circuit. I think that's always a really good place to start if you do have a pony, and that's sort of an avenue you can go down. The racing schools have lots of training days. There's lots of things you can do there. Whether you're already working in racing, there's like work rider courses to progress, or if you're just wanting to get into racing, they have taster days, so you can see whether you'd like to go and do the residential courses there or not. But the training is there if you look for it. But I think the main thing is you've got to sort of ply your trade in a yard first of all. A lot of young people seem to think they can just magically get their license out once they turn 16, and there's so much more to it than that. It's quite frustrating when you're riding out and there's these 16, 17-year-olds quite cocky, thinking that they're going to be a jockey, and they don't seem to understand how hard it is and how much work goes into it. And you know, even if you're a good rider at home, there's a hell of a lot more to being a jockey than that. There's plenty of people that are brilliant riders at home and never make it on the track. So yeah, I think you just have to be very receptive, listen to all the advice you can get, and take it on board and be humble about it.
Definitely. And yeah, just sort of, you know, coming into to an end now, sort of, would you be able to give us one or two horses that you feel could go on to achieve things in the stable at the moment? Is there any one horse in particular that you could tell us and our listeners that could be quite interested in?
This year we had Strawman join us in the middle of the season, and he was rated 70 and won his first 3 starts, and then got narrowly defeated in the Sunday series at Haydock on his 4th start. He was due to run at York on Saturday, but he had an abscess in his foot, so couldn't take his place. But I don't feel like we got to the bottom of him yet. He's the one that I'm really looking forward to seeing next year, because if he can keep going the way he has been, particularly with a step up in trip in mind for next year, then I'm hoping that we've got a really good horse on our hands.
Love that. I'll get that one noted down then. So yeah, I mean, Liam, have you got anything else that you want to ask?
No, that was great. Just thank you for coming on.
Yeah,
we really appreciate it. Thanks for your time. And I think I see that you've got a horse tomorrow at Leicester, so best of luck with that.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
No, we really do appreciate it, and yeah, enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Cheers.
Thank you.